Yahweh Shemel Shah, Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
Because all the blessings that we're going to get, which is entailing the kingdom of heaven. Isaiah the 60th chapter, I'm going to start at the 10th verse and read on down. It says, and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. So the sons of strangers, that's talking about the actual strangers, the other nations, shall build up thy walls. We're going to have them in slavery. So they're going to be building the kingdom of heaven, because we're not building nothing. We're not lifting a hand to move nothing. It says, for in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually, they shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles. That's talking about the actual Gentiles. We're going to take all of their substance, and that their kings may be brought.
And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. Verse 13. And the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. So the land of Israel, the land of Jerusalem, is going to be made glorious. It's going to be made glorious once again. The kingdom is going to be built up. We had a taste of that during the time of Solomon's reign, which was for about 40 years. Verse 14, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the sole of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord. The word Zion means monument, the monument of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shall suck the breast of kings, meaning we're going to take all their substance. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord thy power, the Lord and thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring thee gold, and for iron I will bring thee silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. And I will make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and the power thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, meaning our kingdom is not going to go down. In other words, once we get back in power, we're going to be in power forever. The sun is never going to go down on our kingdom again. The sun is never going to set on our kingdom. We're going to always shine, and we're going to always be in that glory once we get into the kingdom of heaven. There's no more going back into slavery under the other nations. Esau's not going to rise back up and put us in captivity. Ham, Japheth, Ishmael, none of the other nations are going to rise up and take us down ever again. When we get on top this time, we're going to remain on top. Neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. So no more mourning, no more crying, no more vexation of spirit, no more weeping, no more hopelessness because of the condition that we're in as Israelites right now. Verse 21, thy people also shall be all righteous, they shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Verse 22, a little one shall become 1,000. This is in the kingdom. So what is this talking about? We're going to have sex. Again, like I said, the 2/3 that are going to pass in this destruction, the 2/3 are going to come back through the 1/3 that make it. The Lord said, 2/3 shall be cut off and die, and the third will I bring through the fire. It says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakadash. All right, double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessing and salvation to the hopeful that out there pushing his word and truth. And it's sincerely across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, and what I want to get into, this morning, all right, dealing with another morning news and prophecy. All right, as we can see, all right, dealing with your guy Trump, Taco once again, dealing with this blockade, and we're in the fall of an empire. Okay, we're watching the American empire collapse. Okay, and the Lord is collapsing this thing. All right, these elites, they have their agendas and their things, and we know that they want, a global reset for a new world order. Okay, but what we're seeing is prophecy is beginning, all right, to consume, all right, the agenda of these devils, man. Okay, see, the Lord is going to take this thing to a level, that these elites can't stop. Okay, because these devils, the elites, they're used to being in control. They're used to being the head of the curve. But now, okay, prophecy has walked these devils down, man. Okay, and we have to remember that Esau is subjugated to the prophecies. Okay, the prophecies are not subjugated to the schemes and the agendas of Esau. Okay, Esau is subjugated to the prophecies. Okay, and what we're seeing is prophecy is steering this man to his end. Okay, and we're seeing that this devil, the scripture say, he's wearied in his counsel. Okay, knowing that you have but a short time, and this is the energy we're seeing from Esau, man. A lot of these things that he's doing, he's winging. There's certain things that's going according to plan, and then there's certain things that the devil is winging, man. Okay, this man, hey, there's that, because we have to understand the elites can make mistakes. Okay, they're not all knowing, they're not all powerful. They're capable of making mistakes and being foolish, man. Even this whole idea of this new world order is foolish. The foundation of this nigga's agenda is foolish. Okay, to replace the Most High with technology. So we have to remember that the basis of his agenda is foolish from the jump. So everything that he does within it, well, it's still based on foolishness, man. Okay, so I want to go here. Let's get this in the book of Ezekiel 28. All right, and it's beautiful to see this devil, all right, scramble, man. It's beautiful to see, all right, this devil, okay, being rushed, okay, to roll out his agenda with this new world order, man. The Lord putting pressure on this nigga, man. Prophecy is putting pressure on this nigga, man. Esau's not comfortably trying to establish this new world order. No, he's frantically trying to establish this new world order, man. Okay, and the Lord is exposing this man to be just a man. Okay, he's exposing Esau, beginning with the elites, that they're just men. Okay, they're just men. That's all they are. Okay, the Lord put this man on this level, and the Lord is taking this man down. Okay, and that's the gist of it, man. The Lord raised this nigga up, allowed this nigga to excel and prosper in wickedness, and now the Lord got this nigga being dismantled, man. Prophecy is dismantling Esau, man. In his mind, he thinks that he's dismantling for a reset, but no, the Lord is dismantling this nigga for an overthrow, man. Okay, this is Ezekiel 28:1. It said, "The word of the Lord Yahweh Bashemal Shai came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus." Okay, and the modern day prince of Tyrus is Esau, man. Okay, beginning with the elites. Okay, and what they've done, through this American empire. Okay, because America, all right, has been the least number one tool in influencing, okay, and ruling the earth. Okay, the elites have ruled the earth through what? America, man. All right, now we know that they're all right beginning to transfer to the east. Okay, that's why we've seen things flowing all right towards the east. Okay, dealing with Russia, China, Iran. Okay, we're seeing things being shifted towards the east. All right, and what we have to understand is that America, all right, has ran this course. Okay, the elites, they pretty much in the phase of liquidating. Okay, America, man. Okay, but America has been, a major tool, okay, for the elites, all right, to put nations in debt, okay, to destroy economies, all right, to bully, these smaller nations for their resources. But it's ran this course, okay. Now the elites have to jump ship, okay, and try another way, okay. Which at the end of the day, Yahweh Shai is coming to eradicate every agenda of the elites, man. And this war is going to spiral out of control beyond the control of the elites. Okay. So here it is. The devil has, pushed all this wickedness in the earth. He's been able, and this speaking from the elites perspective, they've been able to, manipulate, all right, reality, man. These devils have been, to the point of where they can manipulate reality. Okay, they got so much control of, the school curriculum, the food supply, the moving of resources, the currencies, they've been able to manipulate weather and do all these things. But guess what? The Lord is showing you, I allowed you to do all that, but now I'm finna show you that you're just a man. Okay, I'm finna show you that you're just a man. You see, it says, Son of man, saying to the prince of Tyrus, thus said the Lord power, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. Okay, and these elites, they think that they are a God, man. They think that they, all right, and that not only do they think that they are, gods, but they think that it comes from within them. Their power comes from within them. That they're the source of their power. Okay. This is what these devils, all right, believe. And the Lord wants these devils in his mind frame to think that they're gods, man. Okay? And that's why we're finna see the Lord show them that they're just men. And the Lord is showing that they're just men. Okay? And we're watching these things play out. We should be able to see the limitations that the Lord has placed on Esau, man. Okay? We should see that this man has limits economically, militarily, okay, resource-wise. Okay, it says, I sit in the seat of the Most High in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man and not the Most High, though thou set thine heart is the heart of the Most High. So this double mindset is that he's a God and he's in control of his destiny. Okay, that he can control and manipulate, all right, his destiny, man. You see, this is the mindset of these elites, man. And the Lord wants them in their mindset so he can embarrass these niggas, man. Okay? The elites really have a God complex on a whole nother level because the Lord has allowed them to achieve so much, okay, through left hand wickedness, man. All right, through the left hand magic. Okay, the Lord has allowed this man to acquire so much, okay, to enrich himself, okay, and to have so much authority when it comes to global affairs. Okay, when it comes to reality, this man has been able, like I said, this man has been able to put a false reality in the earth, man. Most people operate off of false reality created by these goddamn devils, man. Okay, so he's looking at these things, man, and in his mind, he's on the even playing field with the Most High, to where he can challenge the Most High's prophecy, man. And what we finna see, prophecy is finna beat this man to sleep, and it's happening now. What we see happening is prophecy is beating Esau to sleep, man. Okay, this ain't Esau master plan playing out perfectly. No, this is Esau scrambling trying to pull this shit off, man. And prophecy working against this nigga, man. Okay, because he's not in full control of everything, man. Okay, prophecy is in control. Okay, that's why everything is aligning according to prophecy, man. And we're gonna get into it. Okay, things are aligning exactly according to prophecy, man. Okay, Esau, remember, the elites are subjugated to prophecy. Prophecy not subjugated to the elites. Prophecy is not working around what the elites got going on. No, the elites are the elites have to bow down to prophecy, man. Okay, don't give a damn what deals they got with these nations, what plans they got, Bohemian Grove. None of that shit matter when it comes to prophecy, man. Okay, that's the Lord showing that He is. Okay, these NATO pacts and all. Article 5 ain't no Article 5. Ain't none of these nations, NATO nations, coming to help America. Okay, these nations from the flip. You see, because it's prophecy, man. You see, Ezekiel 28:3 says, "Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There's no secret they can hide from thee." Yeah, because through technology, this devil is able to spy out a lot of things. You know, he's able to spy out a lot of things. You know, he's listening now. He can get your text messages. All these devices are nothing but spy. All right, technology, military technologies, laptops, TVs, phones, cameras, everything. You know, mostly devices. You know, these new cars are nothing but spy technology, man. You know, he has the satellites. Okay, so he's able to you know um spy out a lot of things like no other heathen has ever had. Okay, to see, but he's not all powerful. He doesn't know everything. He knows a lot. Lord gave this nigga a lot of power, but he doesn't know everything. That will make him omnipotent, omnipresent. He's not omnipresent. Okay, AI is flawed. His technology is flawed. He's limited in what he can do. He can do a lot, but he's limited. Okay, all this technology, no matter how advanced it is flawed. Okay, verse 4 says, "With thy wisdom," it says, "with thy wisdom and with thy understanding, thou has gotten thee riches, and has gotten gold and silver into thy treasures." Yeah, so this man has been able to create these systems, to accumulate wealth, man. And one of the best thing this nigga did was that petrodollar, man, because he was able to extrapolate a lot of wealth from the earth, with this petrodollar, man. Because the petrodollar is not a tool of wealth; it's a tool to extrapolate resources, man. This devil has a system set up to where the world trades paper for wealth, man. And he's able to create the paper, so he's able to extrapolate the wealth from the world. That's why 1%, okay, of the population own 90% of the world's wealth. Not the dollars, but the actual wealth, the land, the resources. Okay, you see people. Okay, so this devil has created these systems, and you gotta think, and he's pulling this off. So in his mind, he's puffed up. He got because the dollars is a scheme. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. You see, but he's been able to enrich himself off this scheme. Okay, he controls the traffic. He controls the flow of money. He controls the flow of goods. Okay, it says, "By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic has thou increased thy riches, and thy heart is lifted up because of thy riches," man. So this man has been able to enrich himself, on a level that can't be fathomed, man. The wealth that this man has been able to extrapolate out the earth, man. Okay, and it presents and it gives him this sense of pride, this sense of godhood, man. It says, "Therefore, thus said the Lord power, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of the Most High." Okay, and we read this. Let me see, get an A and P. real quick. When you go to Ezekiel 28, I think there's 7 in the AMP, said, therefore, thus said the Lord power, because you have imagined, all right, your mind to be like the mind of the Most High, having thoughts and plans like the Most High himself. Okay, so Esau, he's very delusional in his capability. A lot of these things that this devil plans on doing is unachievable, man. Okay, he believes his own hype. So a lot of these things that this devil plans on doing are unachievable, man. He can't do it. Okay, a lot of things that he pushes out on his agenda, and even with the AI, a lot of this stuff is unachievable, man. Okay, even the things that we haven't seen, that shit is limited. The AI we haven't seen, the technology we haven't seen, it's unlimited, man. The weapon we haven't seen is still unlimited. We know the ultimate weapon he got is the nukes. You see, what does he got beyond the nuke? Okay, which is the end of this man's kingdom. Okay, so this man has thoughts and plans like he's the Most High himself. This new world order, this is him really thinking that he's the Most High himself. Okay, he can't begin to do the daily operations of the Most High. Okay, the things that the Most High is responsible for to keep life functioning in the earth. Okay, Esau can't walk a day in the Most High's shoes, man. A second in the Most High's shoes. Okay, but this devil puts it off like he just one breakthrough away from being the Most High. Man, it's not even close, man. He doesn't even compare. Okay, but he's been able to hype himself up. Okay, project himself like he's the Most High himself, man. The Most High is finna show this nigga you're not. Okay, so let's go here. Let's keep reading. And that was Ezekiel 28:6. It says, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible other nations. Okay, so we're going to see in this war that Esau is a man, the elites are limited. Okay, because in the midst of this war, where are the elites going to be? In the bunkers, man. Okay, I have more respect for a common foot soldier than the elites. All right, someone that's on the actual battlefield. Okay, a nigga in the bunker can't project himself to be this powerful, this mystic, nigga, you in the bunker. Okay, nigga, you do all this wickedness and you start all this mess, and nigga, you in the bunker, man. I have more respect for the common foot soldier than the elites, man. Okay, and this Third World War is showing how limited this nigga is, man. Okay, and it says, behold, therefore will I bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness, man. Yeah, because America, like I say, has been, what does the scripture say, the excellency of the Chaldeans. Okay, and you can tell that these devils, they wanted to steer, they wanted America to guide all these nations into this new world order. Of course, they wanted to weaken the American population. Okay, because we can confuse, okay, the American military machine, okay, with the American population. No, the American military machine, they want to use that to really destroy, okay, which is to take over the energy in Iran. They wanted to use the American military machine, but see, now we're seeing that the American military machine is limited. Okay, it's limited. It didn't perform like they thought it was going to perform. You see, now they have, okay, their interests with China and Russia. So China and Russia is juiced in. Okay, and we know that. You see, but you can tell that these devils really wanted to use the American military machine, to take over the energy in Iran. Okay, Now, the American people, you see, they want to drastically weaken the American people. All right. That's why they're going to bring, it's going to be so much, chaos in America. All right. To create desperation. And they want knock down the American population. Okay. To subjugate them to this new world order. You see, but they built, and see, this is why they invested so much into the military and not into the people. Okay, because the military has been, the American military has been a tool for the elites. Okay, the American people, okay, have uh, uh, uh when you go into the way they, because the scriptures say, well, what a man treasures, that's what his heart will be also. So what do they treasure? They do the military. They don't pour into, all right, the civilian sector of America. Okay, they've been abandoned it. Okay, we're gonna video is going, and it's a video I want to go into, in this lesson. He's gonna break it down. He's gonna go into it. But you go into how these elites, use America. They use America for its military and the petrodollar, man. Okay, they don't care about the American people. Okay, that's why nothing that your government does is in the interest of the American people. It's in the interest, okay, of the elites. Okay, so they want to break down the American civilization, man, and that's why you see America is becoming what, a big data center. Nothing but a big data center, man. Okay, because this new world order, all right, to run, all right, the DPI, this devil needs all these data centers, man. Okay, so let's keep going. And it says, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom. So the Lord said, I will bring strangers upon thee. Okay, so it's the Lord that got the elites. They what you call it, they instigate these wars, like they sicked America on Iran, but the results ain't what the results they wanted. Now they're still going to be able to crash the economy, because that has to happen. You see, that's within prophecy. See, the only thing that the elites are being allowed to do is what's written in prophecy. All the other shit that they got going on is beginning to backfire and fail. But the Lord is allowing them to do things that fulfill prophecy. The Lord wants to crash the economy. So that's why that avenue is still open. Okay? But these devils really wanted that Iranian energy, man. Okay? But the Lord has caused Iran to be that wild boar in prophecy, man. Okay? And this changes the trajectory of Esau to where now he got to move in haste. Okay? He got to move in haste to try to pull this thing off, man. Okay? So prophecy is prevailing against this nigga, man. Okay? Because because it's a never-ending rabbit hole when you try to speculate, okay, exactly what the elites got going on. Okay? Really, it don't matter. Outside of prophecy, don't matter what they got going on. Okay, we know these devils, the economy got to collapse, civil unrest, all right, which is Jacob's trouble. Okay, the persecution of the prophets, you see, and the MOTB being mandated. Outside of it, all the other shit don't even matter. Okay, so what we're seeing is the Lord, all right, has prepared these nations, okay, with these certain alliances, all right, to begin to work against this devil, man. Okay, things are working against Esau, man. Okay, Esau's not in the lazy boy laid up. Okay, watching his master plan unfold beautifully. This nigga is frantically trying to pull this off, man. Okay, and it says, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. They shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas, and that's a dishonorable death. Someone that dies out to sea, that's a dishonorable death. Not to be able to be buried, to have a ceremony. That's a dishonorable death. The elites, America, hey, they finna go down with dishonor, with shame. Okay, the Lord is going to embarrass Esau, man. He's going to embarrass the elites. He's going to show that these are just men. Okay, nigga, nothing spectacular about you. Okay, I had you winning. That's what the Most High is finna show Esau, nigga. I had you winning. Okay, and if you so great, that's why scripture say, stand now with thine enchantments. If the elite so great, as the scripture say in Isaiah 47, stand down with thine enchantments. Start undoing this prophecy. Start reversing the will of the Lord. Okay? So the Lord is mocking these devils, man. Okay? And it says, verse 8, it says, they shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Wilt thou yet say before him that slayed thee, I am the Most High, I am a God? Okay? I want to see the elite stand in front of the Muslims and say, I'm a God. Okay? I want to see a Rothschild go stand in front of one of these hypersonic missiles and say, I'm a God. Okay? His ass going to the spirit realm, man. Okay? And these niggas be dying of heart disease and strokes and heart attacks, man. Okay? Heart, one of Rockefeller had like 8 heart transplants. Nigga, get out of here. Okay? It says, but thou shalt be a man and no God in the hand of him that slayeth thee. Okay? In the hand of him that slayeth thee, man. Okay? These devils are going to die the deaths of men. Okay? They're going to see, man, this power structure, all right, be completely destroyed, man. This man has started a war to end his own kingdom. Okay? Because if he was so wise, he wouldn't even started this war. He would have did something else, but he can't. Okay? This is a stupid way to reset a system. Okay? That's like trying to change a motor while you're driving the car. Okay? It's like trying to put a new motor in while you're driving the car, man. Super stupid that what this nigga is doing, man. Okay? It said, thou shalt die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken it, said the Lord power. Yeah, the death of the uncircumcised, which is like I said, a dishonorable death. Okay? So this man is gonna die with dishonor, man. That's why shameful spewing is on this nigga glory. Okay? This man is getting ready to die a very dishonorable, shameful death, man. Okay? So let's go here. Because this guy, Trump talking about the blockade, which, at the end of the day, Trump, you can't take nothing he says, all right, serious. He's an actor. Okay. Well, let's go here. Okay. I got quite a few. So let's go here. So it's supposed to be this blockade. Okay. Well, the American Navy, all right, was supposed to stop all oil tankers, okay, coming from Iranian ports, which 90% of the oil tankers going to and from Iranian ports is from China. So basically, this was a play against China, because we have to understand the 2 most oil consuming, all right, economies on the earth is America, number 1, which they consume about 20%, okay, of 20% of, all right, the earth's daily oil consumption. So America consumes about 20 million barrels of oil a day. Okay. China consumes right at 17. So between China and America, okay, you have 37 million barrels of oil consumption out of 100. Okay. So 37% of the earth's energy through oil is consumed by America and China. Now, what we have to understand, yes, these nations have deals where they work with each other, okay? Because they have to. These nations have deals of convenience. They work with each other because of convenience. Okay, there's no trust. There's no integrity. There's no trust between these nations. These are all right deals of convenience. Okay, so you have these nations, they benefit from each other. Okay, but there's really no trust, and they've been always at each other. We can't look at these relationships as if it's a black and white thing. No, it's a lot of treachery within these relationships. Esau has a lot of toxic relationships with these nations. They work together, they do trade, they're with the New World Order, the technocracy. When we went into China, we went into Beijing and see that they are far ahead of America when it comes to the New World Order infrastructure. Okay? And that technology comes from America, man. Okay? But China has been able to advance a lot of their technology and take it to another level. Okay? But at the end of the day, we have to understand Esau has a very toxic relationship with these nations, man. They help each other, but they're always having skirmishes and fights. It's just like a toxic relationship. Okay? That's how that's how Esau's relationship with these nations are. It's beneficial, but it's toxic. Okay? If that makes sense. You see? So, it's always been skirmishes, man. We can, sit down and go through what's been going on behind the scene for decades with these nations. When they trade with each other, but there's infighting. There's always been this infight. There's always been this tension. Okay? So now we're seeing these things spill over into actual war. Okay? Because when China really get fully involved, ain't gonna be no trade coming from China. Okay? Ain't gonna be no trade coming from Russia. Right now, of course, you can look and see they still trade, but that doesn't mean that there's not actual tension between these nations. Okay? You can be mad, all right? If you're mad, and if you're mad, you see, at the so you might dislike certain things about your local grocery store. But guess what? You still gonna go to that grocery store. Okay? It might be certain little things you don't like or whatever. You're gonna still go to that grocery store. All right? Because it's a convenience. Okay? So these nations have real tension, okay, but they deal with each other for convenience. These are whole nations. This ain't, this ain't, you can't just fall out. You can't fall out and say, I ain't fooling with you no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, this don't work like social media. No. Okay, these are functioning nations. All right. So they have to compromise differences for the sake of convenience. You see? So let's play a little bit of this. And this is just dealing with the blockade and how, the power is shifting to the kings of the East, man. Okay, which the elites, they bet and they gamble on both sides. Okay, but the level of control that they have over the kings of the East is different than the level of control that they have over America, man. Okay, so let's play this. And at the end of the day, the Most High is doing this, man. I say the elites are just playing their role. Let's play this.
Today, we're diving deep into the most consequential geopolitical chess match on the planet. A story unfolding right now in the narrow turquoise waters of the Persian Gulf. You have likely heard the saber rattling from Washington and Tel Aviv, the thundering rhetoric of maximum pressure, and the arrogant declaration that the United States Navy has sealed the Strait of Hormuz shut.
Iran has established a new safe passage which changes how ships can travel through the Strait of Hormuz.
Those shipping routes pass either side of Larak Island. That heavily guarded island is reportedly being used by the RIGC to monitor ship traffic.
4 Iran-linked tankers have crossed the strait despite Washington's naval blockade.
But in the last 72 hours, something absolutely remarkable has happened. It's a maneuver so elegant, so deeply tactical, and so humiliating for the American empire that naval strategists from Annapolis to Beijing are tearing up their old textbooks. Iran has just outsmarted the much-vaunted U.S. blockade with a stroke of strategic genius. It didn't involve sinking an American destroyer or firing a salvo of hypersonic missiles. It involved brains over brawn, sovereignty over subjugation, and a cleverly drawn line on a nautical chart known as the Larak Lane. And I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand why even China...
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform made for anyone with an idea. And it,
despite its own vast maritime ambitions, was caught off guard by the sheer audacity and intelligence of the Iranian military's plan. A plan that is literally rewriting the rules of naval warfare right under the nose of the USS Gerald R. Ford. Let's set the scene because context is everything, and the hypocrisy we're witnessing is staggering. The United States, with the backing of the rogue entity in Tel Aviv, has been attempting to strangle the Islamic Republic. They announced a naval blockade of Iranian ports, a flagrant textbook act of war under Article 204 of the UN Charter. Let's be absolutely clear about what the Americans and their Israeli puppeteers are doing here. A naval blockade without a declaration of war is international piracy, pure and simple. The Iranian ambassador to the UN minced no words, calling it a gross violation of sovereignty and a clear act of aggression. This is the same America that lectures the world about freedom of navigation while stationing floating fortresses thousands of miles from its own shores to starve a nation of food, medicine, and fuel. And it's economic terrorism dressed up in a naval uniform. So, with the US Navy's Fifth Fleet essentially parking itself between the Omani coast and the Iranian port of Bandar Jask, they thought they had tightened the noose. They were stopping vessels left and right, harassing merchant mariners, and trying to bring a proud nation to its knees. But they forgot one crucial detail. They're dealing with the heirs of an ancient civilization that invented the very concept of the chess move. And what Iran did next? It was a masterstroke. But before we get into the gritty, thrilling details of exactly how the Iranian military rendered the American blockade completely impotent, and trust me, you are going to want to hear every second of this, I need to ask you for a small favor. If you believe in honest journalism, the kind that isn't funded by the weapons lobby or dictated by Pentagon press releases, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps overpower the algorithm that tries to silence voices critical of Western imperial overreach. And while you're at it, drop a comment below. You can literally just put a dot, a flag emoji, or better yet, tell me what you think about the US using starvation as a weapon of war. Let's get this conversation going and make sure the world knows that people are watching and they are not buying the lies. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. The independent media space is under constant attack, and your support is the only thing keeping this honest, unfiltered analysis alive. We are not a mouthpiece for the State Department or the Likud party. We tell the truth no matter how much it infuriates the warmongers in DC. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this maritime genius. The US blockade was designed to be a wall. They positioned their naval assets to create a choke point between Sohar in Oman and Bandar Jask in Iran. The idea was simple. Any vessel moving in or out of Iranian waters would be boarded, detained, or turned back under the threat of the big guns of the US Fifth Fleet. It was a blunt instrument of coercion. But the Iranian military, with a deep historical understanding of these waters, simply decided, we'll build a new road. And they did. They established the Hormuz Passage Trial Anchorage route, colloquially dubbed the Larak Lane or the Keshem Corridor. Here's the brilliance. The Americans were patrolling the open international waters of the Gulf of Oman. Iran simply shifted the maritime highway inside its own territorial waters. This new route bypasses Larak Island and hugs the northern shore of Keshem Island, just south of Bandar Abbas. And what was waiting for the merchant vessels inside these Iranian territorial waters? Not just empty promises. They were met by a massive buzzing swarm of Iranian military speedboats. These aren't just fishing vessels with a machine gun bolted on. These are heavily armed, highly maneuverable attack craft, the backbone of Iran's asymmetric naval doctrine. They formed a moving, impenetrable escort wall that the Americans could not legally touch without entering Iranian waters, which would have triggered a direct, all-out war. Washington wanted a blockade. Tehran gave them a protected sovereign transit lane. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know this is working and how did it start? It started with a very clear, very brutal message to the rest of the world. Stick to the U.S. rules in international waters at your own peril. The Iranian route is the only safe route. This was underlined.
So what Iran has done, they open up a whole new, shipping route in the Persian Gulf, coming through the Strait of Hormuz and out into, the open waters of trade. Okay. So Iran has took over, the Strait. Every day, they're, forming new shipping routes, they're getting told, so nothing is working in favor for America, man. Okay. Now the elites benefit off both sides. Okay. But America itself, okay, doesn't benefit. You see? And that's because what we're seeing now, is these nations that once, would bag America. Because I say you have, the SWIFT system, and America was attempting to transition into this digital system with the stable coin, which was going to be the digital petrodollar. Okay. But in order to, further that petrodollar, they wanted this Iranian oil, okay, which would have gave America all the chess pieces. It gave them most of the chess pieces on the board, okay, but it didn't work. So now they're trying to counter everything Iran is doing, and it's not working, okay, because even with this blockade, all right, so now Iran has established a shipping route, okay, that America can't touch unless they want to go back to an all-out war. Okay, and America really don't want to go back into no all-out war, but they're gonna have to. That's gonna be their only option, showing you that prophecy is in the driver's seat. They're trying to do everything else but go into an all-out war. Okay, because this blockade is meant to strangle Iran and China. It's not working. Okay, it's just showing how incompetent American military has gotten, man. And these other nations have become powerful. Okay. When Russia and Iran Russia and China get directly involved in this war, it's gonna be extremely bad for America. It's gonna be way worse. That's why eventually just gonna have to go nuclear, man. Because conventionally, it just get worse for America, man. And conventionally military combat, it's gonna get way worse for America, man. Way worse. Okay? And small hats ain't even a factor. Okay, you start talking about the small hats military. They not even a factor. This the big boys outside now. Okay, they just gonna keep blowing up hospitals and schools, and that's all they gonna do. That's all they could do is strike civilians. That's Amalek. That's their legacy. Okay, of attacking the weak. Even in the scriptures they're known for that. Okay. But when China and Russia get directly involved, and Turkey, it's just gonna get worse and worse, way worse for America conventionally, man. All right, that's why eventually, as these other prophecies are fulfilled, the civil unrest, Jacob's trouble, the persecution of the prophets, okay, and the mandate of the MOTB, okay, when these things are fulfilled, this war just gonna have to go nuclear, man, because conventionally America can't do nothing. Okay, with this alliance that the Lord has raised up against these devils, man. And then when they go nuclear, that's gonna go bad for America, man. Okay. So these Chinese vessels are still going back and forth, all right, and they haven't been touched by the American Navy. Iran is escorting these vessels, and China has their Navy vessels, okay, out there as well, man. You see? Loaded with soldiers, okay, and ready for a shootout. Okay? So, nah, man, ain't nobody buying the American wolf tickets, man. And they're just making Taco look worse and worse, man. Credibility is gone, and all these nations are saying, look, this is the secure shipping lanes. America, you can't secure nothing. Okay? Because America, one of their strengths was one of the strengths of the American military is that they used to be able to secure shipping. They can't do it no more. Okay, Iran has proven that they incapable of securing shipping. Okay, and it's swinging all these nations, all right, to come under the banner of Russia, which is what? Fulfilling prophecy, man. Okay?
Dramatically in March, when the bulk carrier Mayuri Nari was transiting southeast of Oman, clearly not using the Iranian corridor. Out of nowhere, 2 projectiles slammed into the vessel, igniting a ferocious fire on board. The crew had to abandon ship, and the vessel eventually drifted, a smoking hulk, until it ran aground on the coast of Keshem Island. This wasn't an accident. This was a surgical targeted warning shot heard around the world. The message from Tehran was unmistakable. You can trust the criminal U.S. Navy, which can't even protect its own vessels from the Lebanese resistance, or you can trust the proven, established security of the Larak Lane.
Yeah, man. So the Lord got it to where these nations are swinging, all right, to Iran because they like, because if you're gonna try to go the American way, nigga, you can't move, But through Iran, it's like, nigga, you can move. You see? So we're watching a major shift in power, all right, and it's going to lead and escalate to all-out war, okay? To these bigger nations getting involved because America's gonna have to do something drastic, man. Which ain't no good options for Esau, ain't no good options for America, man. Okay, and eventually ain't no good options for none of these nations, man. You see? So let's go here. Let's go into another quick video. I'm gonna get to brother got some good precepts too. So let's go here real quick. Let's go here. Get these precepts because these precepts explain, what I was talking about earlier. Dealing with the relationship that these nations have. This is the brother GMS. All right, Taza Da Yara 144K, Sirach 6 and 8. For some man is a friend for his own occasion and will not abide in the day of trouble. Yeah. So the relationship that these nations have with each other is beneficial. Okay. But as we see, a war, all right, begin to escalate, all right, these nations are going to fully break ties with each other. And that's when things are really going to get drastic. When China stops shipping to America, that's when things are going to get drastic. Okay? You see? When Russia and these different nations really stop shipping and doing business with America, that's when things are going to get drastic, man. Okay? So in the day of trouble, man, we're going to see all this shipping and trade between these nations going to come to a complete halt. Okay? And it says, because right now they're allies of convenience. Okay, none of these nations really deal with each other like that. Even the certain alliances with Russia and China and Iran, they don't just deal with each other like that. They just right now, they just in an alliance of convenience, man, to come against the whore. None of these nations really just deal with each other. Esau has a very toxic environment of how these nations deal with each other, man. All right, it's just a bunch of toxic relationships of convenience. Verse 9, it says, and there is a friend who being turned to enmity and strife will discover thy reproach. Okay, so now these relationships are, these toxic relationships are starting to get what? Violent. Okay, they're starting to become very violent. You see, because it went from just all this verbal, abuse to now it's going to go physical. Now things are finna get physical, man. You see? And it says, verse 10, it says, again, some friend is a companion at the table, because now they all eat from the same table, the same global market. Okay? All these nations eat from the same global market, man. The petrodollar, has been the driving force behind the global market. But one thing the devil Esau has done, he created a sanctioned economy by putting sanctions on everybody and weaponized the dollar. He's created a whole nother economy that exists outside the dollar. Okay, well, Russia, Iran, and China thrive in that economy, man. Okay, so again, some friends are companion at the table and will not continue in the day of affliction, man, which is in this war. In this war, man, these nations are gonna break ties and they're gonna go at it, man. Okay, we just seen the beginning of these things now, and they're just so, and this blockade just create more opportunity, for this war to escalate beyond, all right, where it's at now. Because right now it's a ceasefire. The ceasefire end in a few days, and we'll see if America, all right, is going to go back to striking Iran. We see the small hat's going to go back to striking Iran. Okay, we'll see. But right now it's a ceasefire. But with this blockade, it just creates another element of escalation, man. And this war escalating does not benefit Esau. It does not benefit the elites. Okay, as far as the end game, it might benefit them in resetting the system, but that's gonna be short lived. Okay, it's gonna be short lived. Yes, it benefits them in the extremely short term. Okay, you see, but forward in their kingdom, their empire, it doesn't benefit them, man. This war escalating because this war is going to wipe out America. So all them goddamn data centers, you see, is going to destroy, okay, the New World Order scheme. That's going to be confounded. Okay, and all these nations, the militaries of the earth are going to be destroyed. So even, uh, this devil's, okay, interest that he has in these Eastern nations, China, Russia, okay, Iran, you see, these Asian, Japan, you see, even his interests there are going to be destroyed because Yahweh Shah come to clean all that up, man. So there's nothing good working for this devil, man. Even if it seemed like it's in his interest, man. Because that goes into the art of war. Because you always want your opponent to feel that he has another move when he don't. And you want to create, all right, his next move to play against him, but in your favor. But he thinks it's playing in his favor, man. The Most High is a man of war. When it comes to strategy, being a strategist, no one can out strategize the Most High, man. Come on, man. All right. So let's play this.
Donald Trump is instantly folding in these talks with Iran. Donald Trump talked a big game. He said, we're putting a blockade all over the Persian Gulf. This is how we're going to threaten and punish Iran. And then Chinese tankers just went right past the blockade. And then Donald Trump is still ranting and raving like a lunatic after his so-called blockade collapsed. You have CENTCOM bragging, we have 10,000 members of the military enforcing this blockade. Yeah, but like the Chinese tankers are going right around it. And all you're doing is causing more economic harm by preventing ships from getting into the Strait of Hormuz. You have the Iranian social media accounts mocking Donald Trump right now. They're writing, the Strait of Hormuz isn't social media. If someone blocks you, you can't just block them back. Also, Iranian social media is, it appears someone is speaking in his sleep. Iranian social media accounts also are posting, if you had said before the war that some Europeans would choose Iran over Trump, they would possibly recommend you a psychiatric evaluation. It's worth building up this right stance. Now, Donald Trump is saying, don't worry.
Why is the EU choosing Iran? Okay, because according to prophecy, they shall hate the whore, and they're going to burn the whore with fire. Okay, that's why they're choosing Iran. Okay, you see, you have when you really look at it, okay, you got three levels. So you have what's happening on the ground, the actual day-to-day war, what's going on in the war. You have that going on, and then you have on the next tier what the elites got going on, as far as the economic, all right, aspect, the reset, the collapse. Okay, so you got that perspective, okay, which is above what's going on the ground. But then you have what's happening prophetically, okay, which is above what the elites got going on, and it's controlling what's happening on the ground. Okay, so look at things from the spirit of prophecy, man. Okay, why is EU choosing, okay, to deal with Iran? Because they shall hate the whore, and they're gonna eventually burn the whore with fire. Okay, of course, there's manipulation going on to reset the economy, and we know that even with these BRICS nations, all right, that's another avenue to the New World Order, you know? So we know that it all leads to the devils attempting the New World Order, everything that we see happening. But then from the prophetic side, it's leading to prophecy being fulfilled, which is going to wipe out everything that these devils are doing, man. Okay? So let's play a little more.
Don't worry. We're going to have talks with Iran. We're going to continue our negotiations. Why? Donald Trump wants to manipulate the markets. And so after threatening a blockade and that this is going to make Iran surrender, Iran's like, no, we're not going to flinch at all. Donald Trump's like, let's do it again, but can we do it in Geneva or Riyadh? Or can we do it, I don't know, at some other location other than Pakistan? And Iran's like, nope. We're going to do it in Pakistan because otherwise it poses a security threat to us. Iran also is like, you're going to have to agree that the United States will let us enrich uranium again. Now, we may delay the enrichment for 5 years or 15 years, but you have to agree to let us enrich uranium. And the Trump regime's like, want to do it in like 20 years? And Iran's like, no. We'll do it in 5 years. We'll enrich uranium again. And so now apparently the negotiations have moved away from getting rid of the Islamic Republic's ballistic missiles and regime change and all of these things, basically. And I guess Iran, in some way, shape, or form, will always continue now to control the Strait of Hormuz, regardless of these negotiations. So now what we're talking about is a much worse version of the Obama deal.
And yeah, man. So Iran, all right, is in full control of the negotiations. They're in full control of the shipping lanes, and they're in full control of the outcome of a war. Okay, and that's because if a brother can post real quick, let's get that second Ezra 15 and 28 through 30. Okay, and that's because of the Lord's will. All right, for Iran and prophecy, which is be that wild boar. Okay, and I got another video I want to play real quick. Okay, and this is going to sum up that wild boar, you know, and then we're going to get into the wild boar. All right, to show you how accurate prophecy is, man. Okay, this how you show that you're a God. You know, when you can speak something, then it happened exactly how you say it would, man. Okay, the devils attempt to do that, but they can't. All right, there's certain things, you know, that they're allowed to show, and then it happen. All right, in a very low level way. Okay, but these devils, these are prophecies from thousands of years ago. Okay, and they're playing out exactly how the Lord said that they would happen, man. Okay, you know, Esau, you know, he do his thing on the Simpsons. You see, or some movie or something, man, you know, then it happens a few years later, a decade or two later, it plays out. Okay. But then the Most High speaks thousands of years ago. Okay. And these things play out exactly how he said they would play out. Okay. So let's play this real quick.
Waiting.
Okay. Well, let's get to Scott then. Let's ask him. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. What is your sense of how much the United States will escalate if the blockade is not holding, which it does not seem like it is? Do you think it can do anything? Is there any there?
Well, I mean, of course, there's something there. If the United States wanted to resume the pattern of behavior that they had been undertaking prior to the ceasefire, then they can send airplanes in to bomb Iran ineffectively, and they can sit back and absorb Iranian missiles as Iran continues to destroy, you know, billions of dollars of U.S. infrastructure. They can keep their Navy away from Iranian shores because the Iranian missiles would threaten to sink the ships. And they can be humiliated on the world stage as they prove yet again that they're incapable of defeating Iran militarily in a conventional fight. So this is why they're not going to do that. The United States is looking for an off-ramp. It just has to be a politically acceptable off-ramp. You know, and I know, and pretty much everybody in the world knows that this blockade is a joke. It was always going to be a joke. But it allows the president to posture. It allows the president to say that he has done something decisive. And then the next thing is for the president to say that because of his decisive behavior, the Iranians have reached out and they want to have negotiations. Now, we know that Iran hasn't reached out. It's the United States reaching out to Pakistan, but their president will spin it the way he wants. And I think on Thursday, you're going to see a resumption of negotiations because the United States has no option. They've reached the cap of their conventional escalation capabilities. There's nothing left for them to bomb. They don't know what to bomb. What they were bombing wasn't effective. So there's no sense in them continuing this.
So CENTCOM saying more than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, airmen, dozen warships, dozens of aircraft are all involved in this operation, turning ships around. How effective will that be? What do you see the Iranian response to this? Or how do you see the Iranians' response to this?
Welcome to the next generation of website creation. Wix Harmony. Get the power.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that the majority of Iranian shipping has already left the Strait of Hormuz and the Indian Ocean is out around the world. They've loaded a whole bunch of oil up on tankers, and because of sanctions, they were unable to, offload that oil. So that oil is out there right now, and it's being offloaded because there's high demand for oil right now. And so, this isn't going to have any impact on Iran at all. China, Russia, India, and other nations have told the United States to pound sand. I challenged CENTCOM to prove one instance of them boarding a Chinese vessel and turning it around. They're not. They won't touch them. And I also asked what these 10,000 sailors, airmen, Marines are doing to the ships that just skirt the Iranian coast. Okay, so you come out of the Strait of Hormuz. We know the United States Navy is not in the Strait of Hormuz because they'll be sunk. So the ships come out of the Strait of Hormuz, and what happens if they, just skirt the Iranian coast? What's the United States going to do? Send its vaunted Navy in to challenge shipping on Iran's coastline? No, they'll get sunk. So, this is just pure posturing. There's nothing real about this blockade. Plus, I need to point out that a blockade is an act of war. The last time I checked, the United States hadn't declared war against Iran. It was a military operation. Now there's a ceasefire. So I think the United States is going to have to come up with a different term to describe what they're doing. I think it's called just sailing around in circles.
Okay. It's a pleasure cruise, really.
Yeah. And one point that he made is that, America has done, almost everything it could do conventionally from the air, okay, dealing with Iran. And Iran is still there, man, running shit. You see, this has been the biggest gifts, all right, that America has given Iran in 47 years. Now, we know all this is short-lived, because we know our king is coming back, all right, to clear house, so all these, these small victories from these nations of the East, they're going to be short-lived, okay? So I always got to put that out there. But real quick, I think the brother got it for me. And I want to go into, as I looked up some things dealing with a wild boar, So when you go, let's see, I think the brother got it. But let me put this on the screen and get these presets. All right, so when you go into the scriptures, all right, your Bible Kashar, if you can put verse 29 and 30 as well. Verse 30. Come on. Yeah, verse 30. Yeah, verse 30 and 31, our brothers are. So this is I know sometimes Esau won't let you put certain precepts up on the chat, but this second Ezra, this is Brother Warriors of Yahushua, all right, 144. Second Ezra 15 and 28, it says, "Behold, a horrible vision and the appearance thereof from the east." Okay, you see everything coming from the east, man, and coming west. All right. The Western, because the beast system is these Western governments. The beast system is done, man. Okay, and the elites, like I say, they gamble on both sides, and so they have interest in the East as well. Okay, but they, invested in the West. They invest in both sides. Okay, and they gambled on America. They sent America out there. Okay, America underperformed, so now, they have to bank on the East. Okay, so the Lord has, broken them down today. Everything is on the East now. Okay, and that's going to fail. All right, but we're going to see the East, consume, okay, America, man. You see, and it says, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia, okay, these Ishmaelites, shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them, okay, shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, and they which hear them shall fear and tremble. Now, when you keep reading, all right, verse 30, also the Carmanians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars in the wood. Now, what has these Ishmaelites, all right, and these Carmanians, which are is Iran, which is Elam, well, what has them united, okay, is this faith of Islam, which is false. That's one of the reasons why Ishmael and Elam go into captivity as well, because Islam is a false, religion, okay, but they are bound by their religion, so that's a tool as well that the Lord is using, okay, to have them bound by it, this brotherhood, okay, that's between a lot of these Ishmaelites and Elamites, okay, is this Islamic brotherhood, okay, what is going to cause them to join militarily, okay, to come against the West, man, okay, and it says also the Carmanian raging and wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians, okay, which is modern day Assyria's America, man. And it begins with, you see, they've already started to destroy, America's military infrastructure in their region, because I say these bases, these military assets are an extension, okay, of the American empire, man. And you best believe Iran has weaponry that's gonna reach America, man. Before that, when it's time for those nukes to come to America, man, you best believe, all right, Iran is gonna be in the mix, man. All right, to assist in destroying, okay, the landmass of America, Babylon, man. Okay. Now it says the Carmanians shall rage and wrath shall go forth as the wild boars, okay, of the wood. Now, when you go into a wild boar, so I asked just a quick Google. Oh, hold on. I don't know why it went away. So I asked a quick Google. Pull it back up. So because it's like they can't penetrate Iran, they can't stop Iran from being able to respond militarily, no matter how much they bomb, okay, no matter the sanctions, no matter, the cyber attacks, no matter the CIA and Mossad infiltration, they just can't really penetrate to the heart of Iran, and stop them from being able to resist. Okay, because the whole point of America, they're what they call shock and awe military strategy is to overwhelm you to where you can't respond anymore. And then they're just able to have, air superiority and just have their way with you, man, and just bomb you into submission, but they're not able to do that, okay, with Iran. All right, because the scriptures say Iran shall be what? Like a wild boar in the wood coming forth with great power. So when you go into, I said, does a wild boar have tough skin and are they resilient? Because I've been talking to a few people lately that actually hunt wild boar, and they tell me different stories about that hawk, like you can see their facial expression change, when they talk about them wild boars, man. A lot of people, they stop hunting them, but you're not supposed to be hunting them anyway. All right. And this also shows you why, these animals aren't for human consumption. We're gonna go into it. It says, yes, wild boars have extremely tough skin and renowned for their immense resilience. They possess a thick, all right, cartilaginous shield. Okay. And what does Iran? They have those mountains, okay? They have their rough terrain, and they're able to put their military infrastructure underground like a thick skin, okay, a shield. It says a scar tissue and fat around their shoulders up to 2 inches thick that acts as a armor against predators, okay, their eagle, other boars, and weapons. These animals are highly adaptive, okay, and we've been seeing this in this war, how Iran has been adapting, man. That's because the scriptures say they're gonna be as a wild boar in the wood. We're watching prophecy, okay? We're watching the Lord put on a master class of prophecy and judgment, man. You see, it said these animals are highly adaptive, durable, and notoriously hard to kill. Okay, Iran has been surviving 47 years of sanctions. They've been operating outside the world market. This is why they're not in debt. This is why, the West doesn't have control of their oil and their energy. Okay, and they've been proven to be durable, and this has made them harden to where they got a thick layer of skin. Okay, America can't do nothing with them, man. Okay, it said key features of a wild boar resilience. It says shoulder shield. It says a hardened, gristly layer over the shoulder ribs protect their vital organs. All right, and Iran's vital military infrastructure. It says they have thick skin, dense muscle, and dense bones, known to survive significant injuries. Okay, significant injuries, all this bombing, all this economic warfare, okay, including gunshots and wounds from predators due to robust autonomy, man. Okay, so we're watching the wild boar operate real time. Okay, this ain't you see, this ain't the Hollywood script. No, this is prophecy. You see, so let's go. I got another one. All right, because this the brother, the beloved brother. He watches out of GMS. All right, base St. Louis. He told me about this with the wild boar. How the wild boar, is pretty much immune to snake poison. Okay, so I asked, are wild boars immune to snake bites? It said wild boars are not completely immune to snake venom, but they are highly resistant to it. They often survive bites from venomous snakes like rattlesnakes due to thick skin, dense subcutaneous fat, all right, that traps venom, and specialized molecular, all right, receptors that mitigate toxicity. A thick layer, it says, anatomical defense is a thick layer of fat, okay, adipose tissue serves as a buffer, preventing venom from reaching the bloodstream quickly, especially in adult hogs. They possess natural antibodies in the serum and specific cellular receptors that make them less susceptible to effects of venom, similar to hedgehogs and honey badgers. Wild hogs, all right, may also have a layer of dry mud that acts as an extra, albeit minor, barrier. Okay, so these Iranians are hard to deal with. And the Lord made them hard to deal with for his agenda and prophecy, man. Okay, which is going to override whatever agenda that the elites got, man. Okay, prophecy is going to override whatever agenda that the elites got, man. These niggas finna lose, man. So let's go from there. Okay, and I just I'll just go here, man, because I got some more videos, but I'll just break it down because I know that's gonna go into a whole nother thing, but I got a few things in the chamber. Razal we'll get into. But let's see where we at. Let's go here to Isaiah. All right, 46. All right, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 46 and verse 9. It said, remember, the former things are old, for I am the Most High, and there is none else. I am the Most High, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from the ancient time, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Okay, let's read these in the NLT. You know, so we're seeing the Lord do his pleasure in the earth, man. Okay, let's see. All right, this is Isaiah 46 and 10 in NLT. Only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish. Okay, so the Lord is showing that he is. All right, and he's showing that these devils, they are not. Okay, he's showing to Esau that you're nowhere near God. Okay, you're a clown. Okay, and that's why he has the perfect clown as a logo. Okay, of this Edomite empire, man, Trump. Okay, he's a perfect logo. Okay, and he's just an extension of the elites. Okay, so this is reading the AMP, Isaiah 46 and 10. It said, declaring the end and the result from the beginning and from the ancient time, the things which have not yet been done, saying, my purpose will be established, and I will do all my all that pleases me and fulfill my purpose, man. Okay, so the Lord is doing his will, his purpose. He's doing what's pleasing unto him, man. Okay, so the least is what they got going on in child's play to what the Lord got going on. Okay, and what they're doing. All right, the only thing that they're going to be able to pull off is what's written in prophecy. That's why we know exactly, you know, what's to come. You know, let's say the civil unrest, the collapse of the economy, the MOTB made mandatory, and then this war gonna go nuclear, man. You know, so yeah, the devil can only do what's within the will of the Lord. Everything else, all this other, you know, madness he got going on, man, that's what it is, madness. All right, so Lord will, all right, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. Want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakapadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the whole elect. Shalom.